Hey, how's it going? I'm glad you're here. Today, I'm going to talk a bit about my experience in applying for studying abroad, specifically in Japan. So if you're planning to do that soon, then definitely check this video out, and I hope that it helps you in some way. For some context, it's 2024 and I'm a rising junior, and I will be studying abroad for the entire year in Japan, which is super exciting. And I have spent the past half a year since January applying for everything, checking deadlines, and just making sure that I have everything in order to study abroad because I leave in less than a month now. I will be making videos during my time in Japan while I study abroad this year, so if you do want to see those, then you should subscribe and stick around so you can see what the actual study abroad experience is like for me in particular, and I'd love to be able to share that with people too. And I just wanted to share what I've learned so that maybe you can go into your application process with a little bit more information and you know kind of the timeline. I've timestamped all of the topics I'm going to talk about in the description and then in the video as well. So if you're looking for something in particular, you can definitely check that out. So thanks for watching, and let's get into it. So, number 1, choosing your program. This is the very first step that comes before literally anything else. Things to take into consideration is location, time length, and then if the program is contributing to your degree at all, because there are specific programs that are attuned towards like business majors or science majors or whatever. For me personally, I have always wanted to study abroad in Japan. I finally get the opportunity and I just want to spend as much time as I can there, so I knew I wanted to study abroad an entire academic year. And so that's what led me to choose my particular program. My school, Indiana University, has a couple different Japan study abroad programs, one for half a year, a semester in Tokyo, and you can also do the one that I'm doing. So I'm studying abroad in Nagoya for a year. You can also study abroad for a semester in Nagoya, but the only year-long one was Nagoya. So even though I love Tokyo, like I get to spend an entire year there. Super exciting. So just take these 3 things into mind when you're choosing your program. As for location, knowing the general area is always good. Maybe you find a really good program and it's in this nice looking city, but then you find out that it's like 5 hours from Tokyo by bullet train and you're like, no, like I really wanted to visit Tokyo often. Then maybe that's not the program for you, but honestly, it's just all personal preference. Just do your research and you'll be literally fine. As for degree progress, just make sure that you'll be able to complete your degree. You can talk with your advisor, they'll want to help you. Normally, even if the program does not count towards your major, normally you can get by with a semester abroad without badly impacting your progress. So now that you've figured out which program you're going to do, now you have to actually apply. Oh my god. Keeping track of deadlines, what I would do is look at your application timeline, make sure you put that on your calendar, whatever it is. Like mine was like January 30th, so right after I got back from winter break, I knew I needed to start working on it like immediately. And the first thing that you should do is letters of recommendation. I needed personally 2 letters of recommendations, so I contacted my current and former Japanese teacher at IU, and I contacted them right out of winter break because all the professors you're going to be asking are writing letters of recommendation for a lot of other people. So just make sure to ask them in advance and then they should be able to do that for you. In considering who to ask, just make sure it's a professor that is relevant to what you're doing. Like for my application, I needed 1 Japanese teacher and then any professor. It could have been any professor that would just talk about my character basically. You don't have to go to them in person. Every single letter of recommendation I've asked for, I've done it over email. And then if you are afraid, if you're terrified of sending an email to them, or you feel like you're doing it wrong or you don't know, here is a little example letter. Just make sure that you're polite and really respectful of their time. I would also offer to send your statement of purpose, which means why you want to study abroad and why you might be a good fit for it. And then also send in your resume. Look up online, resume template, or look up on Canva, or your school even might have resources. But super easy, super simple. Just fill that out, send it to them. Those are important because even though they might know you, they don't really know you, so those will let them talk about you a bit more personally. As for the actual application, make sure you're meeting deadlines for things. The main things you're going to need are the statement of purpose and letter of recommendations, and then obviously basic information. What are you planning to study while there? Will this affect your degree progress or whatever? That's the type of question that I had to answer on mine. So as for the timeline, that was January. By January, I had applied, sent it in, done. And then for me, like, I had to get an initial acceptance on IU's end, and then after that they sent the application to the Japanese university, where then I had to wait until May to find out if I was actually accepted. That's like breaking like 3 months at least. I did want to talk about the difference between host family and dorm, because that can really impact your experience while you're abroad. The pros of dorms are that in Japan, they don't really do like roommates. Like, they'll do shared spaces like bathrooms or kitchens or whatever, but they won't really do shared bedroom, which is so nice. I'm not sure how much it varies between other colleges, but you can also look at Destination College's website, and normally they'll have information about the dorm, and you can find out if you'll have to deal with a roommate. Second of all, dorms just offer so much more freedom. You're gonna be able to hang out with students. You won't have to worry about bedtime. You can rely on yourself for meals because host families, they cook for you. And then lastly, they're near campus. But host families, the pros are, one, you're going to get so much more language exposure because often they don't really speak very good English. So you're just going to constantly be in that environment of having to use your Japanese. Secondly, they do cook for you, and this can obviously vary, but most of the time it's gonna be pretty good food. So you'll get home cooked meals and stuff like that. And then also they might be able to take you places, and places you might not know because they're locals, right? So they know a lot of different places. You get basically a tour guide. And just lastly, you'll just get a more authentic Japanese experience, seeing what a Japanese house is like, what it's like to actually live as a Japanese person instead of just like an exchange student. But those are kind of the pros for host family. But then I wanted to kind of talk about the cons. So dorm, obviously it's a dorm. There's gonna be so many rules. Also be able to speak more English there, which means less language exposure, but I will say most universities have really good resources. Like my university has spaces where students can go and speak with Japanese students. Secondly, the dorm just might not be as nice as a house, but this can go either way. Dorms are often, you know, pretty standard. I can't really think of any other negatives for dorms. As for a host family, sometimes they're a little bit lacking on the food. This is not very common, but I have heard stories of them not cooking because they're getting money to host you, and so maybe they're trying to spend a little less. They might not feed you as well, or maybe they're just forgetful or whatever. I've heard a little bit iffy on like the cooking. And then also, which is a super big deal, is that often host families will live far away from campus. The people that are studying abroad this year and who are staying with a host family live an hour away from campus. And then finally, the last thing is just not as much freedom in a host family. There's scheduled meals. It's a little bit more awkward to come home at different times. And then next up, I wanted to talk about scholarships. Studying abroad can be really expensive, particularly with plane tickets, tuition, etc. There's just a lot of other expenses, and you're gonna see a giant price tag on it, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because there are so many resources for students studying abroad, whether that's in your school, like through your school, or outside of it. I will talk about what I applied for. I just want to say, explore your options. Don't let the price deter you, because there's so much support nowadays for studying abroad. Apply for as many as you can and you'll get something, and that might let you cover almost the entire cost of it and maybe bring it down so that it's basically the cost of like a regular year. So I applied for 4 scholarships, and it's these 4. This one's for about $4,000 something for a full year, and then like $2,000 for like a semester, I think. This one is need-based, so I don't know if there's a limit on it. And then I applied for the Hutton International Experiences Program Scholarship through IU, and then also the Hamilton Luger Study Abroad Scholarships, which the Toshizo Watanabe Scholarship is through the US-Japan Council. Honestly, they're super responsive. I really like this scholarship. The application process is basically, you'll need to write essays, which are kind of like the statement of purpose type things, and then get a letter of rec and fill out a lot of forms about like the cost of the program and fill out stuff about your family's financial status. They really prioritize single parent or like no parent students, and then people who haven't studied abroad. I forget the third category, but don't let that deter you. Would definitely recommend it. It is a lot of work. Just keeping track of all your scholarships is going to be kind of a lot of work, so that's why I really recommend making a calendar of all your deadlines, and it'll be so much easier. I applied for this one. I don't really have much to say. It was a little bit easier, I'd say, than the Toshizo one, just because it was a little bit more simple of a application process. It's fairly easy, so just apply to that one as well. As for IU specific, I applied to the button one. If you're an IU student, like, they have the base one, and then they also have like little different mini categories, extra add-on scholarships, like if you're studying a particular thing or if you're going to a particular place, which might mean more money. I don't know how they divide up the money, but HLS scholarships, I applied. I don't know if it's just they only send out acceptance letters. I followed up like in July. I was like, hey, like, I just wanted to make sure like there's no further updates on this. Thanks for your consideration, whatever. No response. But I do recommend applying. But anyways, those are the 4 that I know about that I applied for. And then also I had some scholarships that I got through IU for just a regular school year, and those apply as well to my study abroad. If you go to IU, you can apply for all of these. If you don't go to IU, you can apply for the top 2. Definitely recommend them. Also, there are a lot of scholarships that I saw that I didn't apply for because they kind of had requirements to fulfill after the thing. Like, there's one that made you do like a project afterward, but just make sure like you find out if there's any after requisites that you need to do. But that's what I have to say about scholarships. Don't let the price tag deter you. Amass the money in whatever way. It's gonna be the best experience ever. Okay, you've applied for the program, you've applied for the scholarships, now you wait. You apply to the program in January, you do scholarships like February, March, then April you basically just wait, and then May is when you start hearing back about most things, May/June. It's kind of hard because that's basically summer, and you're gonna be going on vacation or spending time at home or a summer job, whatever. Just make sure you check your email because they're going to email you a lot. Like, I had to submit a bunch of forms. I had to go to a doctor's appointment because they make your doctor fill out a health form for you. And there's just like a number of different things. And I just basically spent the summer kind of just checking my email and waiting and making sure that I was meeting all my deadlines. So then mid-July comes around, you are going to have to apply for a visa. And this is going to be a student visa because you're going to be staying in Japan for longer than 90 days. You can either go to the consulate general in person or you can mail it. They're scattered, so if you're nearby to one, then you can probably just go there in person, but if you're farther away, it's good to mail it. You have to send in your passport, a form called the visa application, a tiny little photo of you, your certificate of eligibility, which the school in Japan that you're studying abroad at should get that to you, your letter of acceptance, a little waiver that says I won't fault the consulate general if this gets destroyed in the mail, and a cover letter. I'll put a little sample cover letter up here. That's basically all a cover letter is. So those are like the things that I put in mine. And it went back to me just fine. So that's the visa, and then it should get back to you within a week or 2. So then once you have the visa, doing that August, and then also finding out what you need to take. My school provided a list of things that come with the dorm, so I don't need to take things like bed sheets. I would not recommend taking those anyway. I would probably recommend going to Japan and then buying those at the dollar store, because the dollar store in Japan has very cheap things for good quality. Check the yen to dollar ratio, because I've been waiting to buy a lot of things because I think it will be cheaper for me to do that when I'm in Japan. I would recommend packing light and buying a lot of things when you get there. Also looking into getting your dollars transferred into yen. In case you didn't know, Japan is a very cash heavy society, so they use cash a lot and sometimes they don't take card. Another thing is phone service. There are like 3 options. You can either just have your international plan, like through your US carrier, which is really expensive, and if you're studying abroad for a semester, you're not going to want to do that. 2, you can get a prepaid SIM card, and this might be good for a semester. And then the 3rd option is a SIM card plan, which might be better for a year-long program just because it's a lot more months, or if you're studying abroad for longer than a year. But those are the 3 options. But that's basically all that I've learned so far by mid-August. I leave in September. I'm a little bit nervous, but I feel fairly prepared. Before you go to Japan, I recommend reviewing your stuff from your Japanese classes. Consume a lot of Japanese media, kids shows, because those are a lot easier to understand and they're meant to help kids learn Japanese and about Japan. So those are my tips. I did want to say, if you have any questions about something I didn't cover, comment them right now, because I always check my comments no matter what. Even if it's like a couple years later, I'm still gonna be checking it, and probably I will learn more as time goes on, so I can give you more informed answers. If I have updated any of the information that I mentioned in here, I will put that in the description. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you learned something from this, and good luck on your application process